Our scripture today comes from the first letter of John, chapter 4, verses 7 to 21. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loves us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. We know that we live in him and he in us because he has given us of his Spirit. And we have seen and testify that the Father has sent his Son to be the Savior of the world. If anyone acknowledges that Jesus is the Son of God, God lives in him and he in God. And so we know and rely on the love that God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in him. In this way, love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment, because in this world we are like him. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. We love because he first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, he's a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God, whom he has not seen. And he has given us this command: whoever loves God must also love his brother. How is your heart doing on this Valentine's Day? It would seem that the charge to preach a sermon on love on Valentine's Day would be the easiest assignment in the world, wouldn't it? And yet my heart feels just a little bit heavy. In another famous passage on love in his letter to the Corinthians, Paul talks about love as being patient and kind, not easily angered or self-seeking, keeping no record of wrong, rejoicing in the truth. And yet here we are at the beginning of 2021, and doesn't it seem like we're just a little less patient, a little more harsh? Anger seems to come so easily, and we've gotten self-protective. We're keeping score and being careless with the truth. We have 2 cats in our house who have not quite been getting along very well for the last couple of months. There's a lot of growling going on and hiding under the bed. And somehow life feels a bit that way right now. As we weary of the pandemic and the constant barrage of political rancor, growling and hissing, and the desire to hide under the bed. I keep hearing the words in my head to an old 60s song. I'm not as brave as Jim Everett, so I'm not going to sing it for you, but it says, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. And yet John's letter reminds us, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, his love is in us and made complete in us. In the midst of so many challenges, how do we choose love? When we are being pulled to pick a side, how do we pick love? When we are tired and overwhelmed, when we are anxious or angry, how do we persevere in love? when it comes to being persevering and intentional in love, I always look to my mother because to me, her life embodied these things. Some of you have heard me tell this story before. You see, my mother had a compelling vision of love that defined our family. She and my father had each been widowed at an early age, and when they got married, they had 6 kids between them. And I came along a little bit later, and I was number 7. And it was a long time before I ever realized that I had a half-brother and half-sisters, or that they were step-brother and step-sisters to one another, because we just never used those terms. From the moment these two families were joined, it became my mother's life purpose to blend them seamlessly into one. Although the fact that I had 2 sisters named Linda was always a bit of a clue that there was something a little bit different going on. Often on holidays, we would give my mother a piece of jewelry, always one with 7 stones in it. And I know that it pleased her that we had learned well and that we saw our family as she did, as one. In death, my mother continued to cast her compelling vision of love. Years before she ever got sick, she put great thought and care into getting her affairs in order. And along with her will, she wrote words of encouragement and a handwritten note dividing up her small possessions among us and why she wanted each of us to have a particular thing. I was to receive her diamond bracelet, 7 diamonds set in a beautiful gold band. She left it to me to remind me that wherever I go and whatever I do, that my 6 siblings will always be there for me, that we are one. And it would have been an amazing gift if only we had still had the bracelet. You see, in the years since my mother had written out her instructions, our house in the Bronx had been robbed again. They always came for one thing: jewelry. And my mom's bracelet wasn't stolen. 3 previous robberies had taught her to hide her jewelry. And this time she had bunked it in the pocket of a raincoat in our hall closet. And then several weeks later, she cleaned out that closet and took all of the things to Goodwill. And she agonized over that for years. And so it was bittersweet when I read the note that she wanted me to have that bracelet. And while I would have loved to have held it in my hand and worn it on my arm, I knew that I already had received all that the bracelet was meant to represent. And it was a part of me. My mother's compelling vision of love and family had already shaped me, just as she had hoped that it would. You know, we're all shaped by many things. We're being shaped by the events of this past year and how we respond to them and to those around us. Those with a vision order their lives around that vision, to be shaped by that vision. And those without a vision are often just shaped by chance, led to and fro by the loudest voices or pushed along by the strongest winds. The writer of 1 John makes it clear that the life of a Christian, the life of a follower of Jesus Christ, is to be shaped by choice, intentionally, and to be shaped by one thing: love. He's emphatic about this. 27 times he refers to love in just this one passage. And it's not just any love, it's agape love. There are many words that you can choose in Greek to express love. There are words for romantic love or brotherly affection or the bond between a parent and a child. But the word agape that is used here was rarely used in Greek culture, probably because it was so rarely experienced. Agape love is a love with no conditions. It is a love that serves the needs of others. It is a love that is patient when patience seems impossible. It It is a love that is happy for others when they succeed without feeling threatened. It's a love that refuses to keep score, even when we might be shortchanged. It's a love that doesn't give up, expects nothing in return, and does not run in the face of rejection. It is the love that is ready to forgive before we have even asked. The love that knows us at the core of our being and accepts us. Agape is the love that frees us to be. It's the love that's embodied in the person of Jesus. This is how we're called to love. This is God's compelling vision for our lives. But it is a difficult love to live out, isn't it? Maybe especially now. It requires much of us, humility and resilience. But this is what we're called to. In the early church, believers didn't draw people to Christ by their doctrinal stances or their worship styles. They lived this love. They took in people no one else wanted. They cared for those who were struggling. People who were nobodies in the rest of society became somebodies. Even those who hated and rejected these early Christians were overcome by and drawn to the selfless ways that they loved one another. And new believers were added to their number by the thousands because we desperately need that kind of love. So how do we learn to choose love? Because it doesn't always come naturally or easily. Verse 19 says, we love because God first loved us. This agape love is not a love that we can generate on our own. It's a love of response, not to the other person, but to God's love for us. I love the story of a man who prayed with an empty chair by his bed. He had struggled with prayer his whole life, and a friend suggested that he pray with a chair in front of him, imagining Jesus sitting in that chair. And so the man did just that, and he liked it so much that his time with Jesus and the empty chair grew day by day. He didn't tell anybody about it, though, what he was doing, because he thought they might think it a little strange if they came and they saw him talking to an empty chair. But one day, the man's daughter called their pastor to tell him that her father had died that afternoon. And the minister asked her if he was peaceful when he died, and she said that he was. But there was one thing that she found a bit strange. Apparently, just before he died, while his daughter was out of the room, the man leaned over and rested his head on the chair. And that's where she found him. Have you ever rested your head in the lap of God? Do you know that you are completely loved just as you are? Have you surrendered your life to the one who is always there, ready to love you first? This love we're called to share with others is a love of response, a love born out of our experience with God, of resting in God, of knowing we are the beloved of God, knowing that God has accepted us, not when we get it all together, but just as we are. A love that frees us up to love others the same way. Love is from God, the writer says. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Our experience of God, he says, is directly tied to our love for others, and that's a sobering thought on some days. Because he says love is not optional, and yet I don't know about you, but there are some people that I find it difficult to love. But our inability to love some people, or in some circumstances, is not the end of faith. It's the beginning of grace. The grace of knowing that just as God loves us, God can also love through us. It's the reminder that we must choose to rely on God's Spirit to love through us when we cannot love by our own strength. In professional poker, they talk about focusing on decisions, not results. The results of a particular hand don't matter, they say, but if you do the right thing enough times, the results will take care of themselves in the long run. Focus on decisions, not results. Love is a decision. I cannot transform myself into a more loving person. I cannot suddenly divest myself of all that makes it hard for me to love as I ought to love. I cannot control whether the other person will respond the way that I want them to. But I can decide in each moment whether I will choose to love or not. I can decide to pray for the ability to be more loving toward a particular person. I can't generate that love. I can only ask for it over and over again. We don't know instantly how to love our enemies, but we can start by practicing being faithful to those who disappoint us. We do not all at once give away all that we have to the poor, but we can be vigilant to not let things become more valuable to us than people. We do not know naturally how to truly bless those who persecute us, but we can choose to offer a kind word or a small gesture to one that we find difficult to be with. The question is not, are you able to love perfectly in this moment as Jesus loves? The question is, do you want that kind of love to be the compelling vision that shapes your life, that transforms your heart, that offers a healing balm to a world that needs it? When we get to the other side of this pandemic, when we find our way to forge some kind of peace in our nation, when we are no longer looking through Zoom dimly, but seeing one another face to face, will it be said of you, you chose to love through it all? Sometime after my mother passed away, I was at her house with my sisters, packing up some of her things. And as I reached to the back of her dresser drawer, I hit on a small box. And when I opened it up, there was the diamond bracelet that she had left for me. It hadn't been given away after all, as we had all thought. It had just been hidden from sight. Love has not been lost among us. Perhaps it has just been hidden from sight. My friends, love abundantly. Love courageously. Choose to love by the power of God's Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Jayne Davis, for challenging us to choose love. I hope that we all take the opportunity to apply what we have heard this morning. So I ask, in what relationship or circumstance do you find it difficult to love right now? Ask God to help you to choose love. You need to do this. I need to do this. Not only for our personal relationships or situations, for when we choose love, we offer hope and encouragement to our community and our world. This Wednesday, February the 17th, is Ash Wednesday. Beginning at noon, we will have a Stations of the Cross outdoor service in our FBC courtyard. In small groups with room to socially distance and wearing masks, we will stop at all 14 stations of the cross. Along the way, we will read Scripture, reflect on what Jesus' actions mean for us, and together we will pray. Our walk will include a stop in the plaza where we will receive anew Christ's sacrifice on our behalf in the imposition of ashes. The first Sunday service of Lent will begin next Sunday, February the 21st. God bless and have a great day.